Hello and welcome to this webinar on one of the most exciting topics in BI and analytics at the moment. Analytics portals. What you should be looking for in an analytics portal and why. My name's Nick Kelly, and by the end of this webinar, I want you to finally have a clear step-by-step approach and checklist for picking the right portal for what you need in your organization right now and how you can get started going with it. So that's my promise to you. If you stick around till the end, you're going to understand what a BI portal is and how to pick based on features of what's the most important for your organization. A little bit about myself. I am the Director of Visual Analytics here at Logic 2020. I'm a former visualization senior manager for a Big Four consulting firm. I actually used to work out of Singapore for several years, and I ran the alliance between Qlik and Tableau for Asia Pacific. I've trained over 3,000 consultants in my last several years of working in this space, as well as having facilitated over 150 analytics workshops. I'm a speaker on this topic and other topics in analytics UX and the enterprise dashboard visualization process. I also run a website called nicksite.com, which is a blog, and I'm the creator of the dashboard wireframe kit. So I've been in this space for quite a while, and given my focus on user experience, I get to see quite a lot of the impact that a BI portal and analytics hub can have on an organization. So let's look at some of the problems that we're facing and maybe some of the reasons why you're on this webinar right now. Now let's see if any of these sound familiar in terms of barriers you might be having to the success of your BI or analytics infrastructure, or program, or department. So you're not understanding user needs, or maybe the people who are building your dashboards and reports are not understanding them. You have a failure to create some business value. So maybe you are creating good reports and dashboards, but they're not really producing the value that you'd hope they would. You're in reactive mode, so you're responding and reacting and just dealing with the pressure of the day-to-day business, and you don't have time to breathe. You don't have time to put your head up and really appreciate what is needed to create that business value. And of course, that all leads to poor adoption. You've got a bunch of dashboards out there, but people aren't really using them the way that had been hoped or had been expected. And a more recent topic that's been coming to the fore, data literacy. So we can be doing well in all these other areas, but people just mightn't know or be data literate in order to get the most value out of the reports and dashboards. Now, I'm happy to tell you, if you successfully implement a analytics hub or portal, you can address a lot of these problems. There are other means of addressing them as well through our requirements gathering process, but quite a lot of that can be facilitated through a BI portal. So with that being said, what is it? What is an analytics hub? It goes by many names. There are many names out there for it. You have analytics portals, BI portals, analytics hub, analytics catalog. There are many names for it. It is quickly becoming a popular topic. So it is basically a BI focused content management environment with a single place to log in, a single URL to access all the existing reports and dashboards in an organization. Now, critically, we want to have single sign-on. More about that later. But we want to be able to have some search across all the technologies that we have, regardless of organization, technology, location, department. And we absolutely want to be technology agnostic. The user should not be caring about what technology a dashboard or report is in. They should just be able to access it and gain insight. Being able to take action on what they're seeing. Not trying to figure out, is this such and such technology? And if we're at that point, we may have had a failure in design. We don't want to get there. So on a very high level, this is what an analytics hub is. But let's look at that in a little bit more detail. It's a single place to access all your dashboards and reports with consistent taxonomy. Now, what is taxonomy? That can be your meta tags, but it's basically the structure, your content structure for your dashboards. So if you think about perhaps in healthcare, you might have a taxonomy that is based on the departments you have in your organization. So you might have oncology, you might have pediatric care, You might have your dashboard sorted by that. Let's say in terms of a consulting firm like Logic 2020, we have our content structured by industry, like uh, again healthcare, retail, oil and gas, finance. So there's several ways that you could structure it, and there's multiple levels of that you could have as well. So really important to get that understanding. It is not just about implementing a BI portal or insights portal technology. You have to go to the effort of properly categorizing the content that you're putting in there, just like any content management system. In addition to supporting dashboards and reports, we also need to support other kinds of content that is supportive of those reports and dashboards. So think of training videos, training content, maybe requirements documents, wireframes, bunch of things that we want in support of the dashboard and report to basically enable the usage of that. We need a commenting system. So you recall some of those pain points we called out earlier there. A lot of that can be partially addressed with being able to have good feedback and discussion on a dashboard over time. So how do we iterate on it, and where is the impetus for the iteration coming from, and the feedback? So if we have a commenting system and a chat system that is persistent on our portal, then well and good, that can be a mechanism for it. It's not the only one, but it can be a good one. We also want to leverage embedded analytics within a modern user experience. And what that means is within the BI portal that you can track all the usage that people are having with all the different reports and dashboards. So it gives this very interesting layer of understanding what people are actually using. So when we bring all this together, we're basically combining insight, people, process, and technology in a single place. So what does that look like? Well, we want to be able to bring in all the modern BI and visualization technologies into one place. We want to pull them all together to be able to access them all. But that's not enough. We need other content to be natively experienced within the platform as well. So we want to be able to open video, we want to be able to open slides, PDFs, whatever it is we need. We don't want to have to be necessarily downloading everything. We want to be able to access it directly on our device in the portal via a browser and have that embedded experience. So who are we talking about? Who is this for? Is this you? See if you match any of these criteria. Usually we're looking to understand, maybe there's you match two of these criteria, it's probably a good fit. If it's just the one, maybe it's a fit, but maybe it's not. So let's have a look at the situation. Multiple BI tools. So you have lots of technologies. Maybe you have ClickSense, and you got Power BI, and you got Tableau, and you're able to access. Okay, you got all your Tableau dashboards there in your Tableau portal, and that's great. And let's say you're in sales, and you're going, oh, cool, there's a nice sales dashboard there. But what if marketing put out a very compelling dashboard that it has high value to you in your sales organization, and they put it up on ClickSense, and it's in the ClickSense portal? Now you don't have access to that, and you don't even know it exists. So how do you find it? So that's a real challenge. So this can be the pain that is emerging with having multiple BI tools. Now, there's not necessarily anything wrong with having multiple BI tools. It is, as long as you address it, as long as you're able to easily find assets across the various technologies, then you're good to go. And that's what the portal will do for you. So if you're having multiple BI tools, then looking at a portal may well be for you. Do you have departmental fragmentation? So some companies are moving towards a more centralized analytics center of excellence, BI center of excellence, where some of this can be addressed. But quite often we're in a situation where departments are doing their own things. It's a little bit of the BI Wild West effect, where marketing has brought in a certain technology, and the sales team's brought in something else, and finance is using Excel, and there's no real consistency around it, and there's no standards. So you can have this amount of fragmentation, and if this is you, a BI portal also may well be a good fit. Saying all that, you generally tend to get the most value out of it when you have some level of scale. So if you have 50 employees, it's not really a good fit. Now you may be in a situation where you've got 200-300 employees, and it may well work, but in general we're finding that you want to have 1,000 or more employees in your organization for the pain to be such that it's worth investing in a portal, in a hub or catalog technology. So look at those criteria and see if they're a match for you, and see if any of that resonates, because they'd be sort of the main indicators for how you would evaluate if you need one. But there are many moving parts. So there's a sense that a dashboard is a product. And when you're looking at a portal, the portal really should be a mechanism of selling that product, of selling it to your market. So let's look at that in a little bit more depth. So you might be in a BI analytics IT department or team, and there's you and there's your colleagues, and you produce a product, and that product is basically a dashboard or report. Now, we don't often look at what we're building in terms of a product, but we really should. Because when we start looking at a dashboard and a report as a product, we basically need to sell it. And when you're selling something, you're selling it to a market. And your market is largely comprised of two groups of people. You've got the stakeholders for that dashboard, and you've got the users for that dashboard. Now, why would any market buy a product? Well, because there's a conveyance of value. We have to be giving value with our product. It sounds very simplistic, but we don't really do that in BI and analytics. We don't really have that sort of focus. So we need a mechanism to provide value. And to provide value, we really have to understand the requirements. So how do we do that? Well, a portal packages all of this in one place. A BI portal allows you to have a marketplace for your analytics and your BI, your reports, your dashboards. You have a single place, a single shop window from which to sell your wares. When you start looking at your BI and analytics in this way, the portal makes a lot more sense, because it allows you to be able to gather your requirements through that interface. Now, you still want to do interviews, you still want to do workshops, and that is another very popular topic I talk on extensively. But the portal can become that interface where you can gather requirements for the next iteration of your dashboard, and as you continue to iterate, you can continue to get more and more feedback and input. So that's all good. What are the benefits? What are the key benefits of being able to implement this? So maybe you are in a position where you're going to buy a portal. You're very interested in it, but you have to get some other people on board. Perhaps you have to share what the benefits are. So some of the key benefits are: you're making your content discoverable. Across technology, it doesn't matter. It's discoverable. People should be easily be able to search, apply filters, maybe navigate through meta tags to find assets. So one of the things you're going to find is there's really two types of search, or discovery, let's say, on a higher level. You have the traditional folder structure, which is going a little bit out of date. You click on a folder, and in that folder there's maybe some files and some other folders, and you can keep digging down. And a lot of us are very familiar with that. But now there's the more modern experience, which is basically through tagging and search. So ideally, whatever solution you pick will have both means of discovering content, because there's both types of use cases. Now, of course, we want a single place, a single repository to not just find reports and dashboards, but also documents, training material. That stuff's really important. We don't want the user to have to go, cool, there's my dashboard. How do I use it? Where's the training material? I'll have to dig through my email and find it. Okay, we don't want that scenario to happen. We want it all to be in one place. So the distance the user has to travel should be very low. Ideally, 1 or 2 clicks away from where the dashboard is. Naturally, one would be technology agnostic. We want to be able to view analytics as well across all the different platforms. So that's going to be interesting as well. So you can see what's the usage and what's the uptake. And ideally, not on all the portals right now, but certainly on their roadmaps. You're going to be seeing recommendation based on machine learning coming more and more to the fore. So for example, let's say you're in your marketing department, and your boss, who's, let's say, the chief marketing officer, has a meeting coming up next week, and the system knows she's looking at a certain dashboard, and there's some very interesting things that are important to her. Well, what if that dashboard got recommended to you, and you can help your boss with some of the requirements for that meeting that she's got coming up in relation to that report or dashboard? So it could be an interesting way to surface information that is context sensitive, real world application to people in your own department, your peers, your colleagues, your bosses. Social engagement. So the ability to be able to give feedback. So we talked about chat already, but also the ability to have ratings. Now, an interesting thing to note here is it is very exciting to have a 5-star rating system, and think about Amazon. Think about the shopping experience. You go look at Amazon and you look at all the products and you go, yeah, that one is a 5-star rating and that's really good. And this other one looks like it's 3 stars, so I'm going to go with the 5-star rating. So you can be a little bit discerning. What if you put that into the portal context and you're able to rate and report on dashboards and reports? Well, there's an interesting emergent behavior that comes from that. This is great for dashboard users. Dashboard users love this. Oh, that is absolutely, looks like is the best sales dashboard out there. It's the 5-star rated one. There's another one that's 1 star and it sucks. Now, what if you are the person who created the 1-star dashboard? You're not going to be overly excited about creating dashboards in the future, or at a minimum sharing them on the portal so that everyone else can find them. So this is something we have to be very conscious of. One of the standards that started to implement around this is we do want some sort of rating system. There's a few ways to tackle it. You could not do a 5-star rating system. You could just do a rating system based on, hey, look at all the people who've liked or favorited my dashboard or report. It's not really a judgment. It's like 10 people have liked it or favorited it. What if no one's favorited it? Well, that's not really a judgment. It's just like, yeah, okay, no one's using that, but yeah, I don't care. Whereas having a 1-star rating is like people have gone out of their way to make a judgment. So just bear that in mind. But also, when it's a 5-star rating system, you could just mandate, look, anytime you're giving a 3-star or below rating to it, you have to give good feedback, positive feedback that's going to make it better. Why is it not good? Why is it not 5-star? So there's one of those tactics you can use, and it's a aspect of the user experience of the interface to enable content creators to add more content to the platform. So that's going to be very, very important. Now, of course, it goes without saying you want single sign-on. You want a consistent and cohesive experience across all the technologies that you're being able to access from your portal, right through to permissioning, Active Directory, whatever your system is that you're using for user and role management. It has to be integrated. Global accessibility. What if you're an organization that has multiple geographies, so maybe multiple locations, maybe international? It needs to be able to overcome issues with permissioning, firewalls, security, network. It needs to be able to address all of those. So that's obviously going to be important. And then becoming more and more to the fore in portals and hubs is personalization. Can the user customize their interface, or can it be customized for them? Can it be configured for them, or can they configure and customize it themselves so that they have a personalized user experience? And of course, you can map that to permissioning and who they are, their role, and their level in the organization. So that's an overview of some of the high level things you're going to be looking for in terms of some of the benefits, right? You're going to have something that's discoverable. You've got a single place to find it on. It's technology agnostic. Ideally, it's you're going to be getting recommendations on content that you should be looking at, and you're getting that level of social engagement. Of course, single sign-on just makes it easier for everyone, so people aren't scratching their heads and thinking, "Wow, what password is it?" and why is it different to the one I usually use to log into my account? And then having that level of global accessibility and personalization. So see all of these as benefits that you can get above and beyond having just multiple BI tools out there and just available in your ecosystem. So that will also give you a flavor for the features, but really what we're looking for is 5 key features that you must have. You need to have multiple means of discovery. You have to be able to search, navigate potentially through tagging, and also taxonomy, ideally with up to 3 layers of hierarchy. Some platforms will go up to 5 layers. So what does that mean? What is several layers of hierarchy? So let's take an example of a taxonomy that we have in Logic. So we have industry as a high level, one high level. Under that we have what are the industries. So an example of that might be healthcare. And under healthcare we might have payer, our provider. That would be 3 layers of hierarchy. So you could go even deeper than that. It's not really recommended to do that, so you really want to cut it off at 3. If you've got more than 3 layers, you may need to just figure out you might need a different taxonomy. You might be entirely appropriate, but you might need it. You may have that taxonomy in your existing portals and in your existing platforms. So let's say Tableau, for example, you might already have that in there. So the portal should be able to ingest that and apply that taxonomy directly within the portal itself. Obviously, we want to have integrated support for common file types. This one you have to have. It is so critical. Don't bother if the portal doesn't have this. It is too fundamentally important. You have to be able to support and enable your dashboard with additional content. It's just too important not to have it. We want low friction sharing and permissioning. So we don't really want to have to set our permissionings at the BI portal level. We want to be able to pull from the existing roles and permissions that exist in our Active Directory or whatever our tool is that we're using, like Tableau, ClickSense, and pull that in and apply it directly within the portal itself. So we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel, and it has to be low friction. It has to be easy to do. And then finally, we want that commenting, that collaboration, the chat enablement. Either it's an integration with Slack and our Teams, or the chat is directly there in the interface itself, directly in the portal. So it depends. You're going to find that there are multiple tools out there, but not all of them do all of these in the same way. They have different approaches to them. So because this is a relatively early and new industry, a new field, there's a lot of variation there. There's a lot of different things that you can be looking at. Now, in a little bit more detail, let's look at some of those features. Some of the things you want to be looking at. So, it needs to be a modern web application. Why? Well, we want a mobile experience largely, right? It has to be able to work on any device, and obviously having a responsive web interface is going to be the way to get there. We want open integration. Now, of course, we want good APIs. And naturally we want integration to the popular tools that are out there, so ClickSense, Power BI, BobJ, ThoughtSpot, etc. We want consistency and discoverability, so that's where your tagging comes in. We want best practices in content management applied. We want to make it really, really easy to publish as well. We want an actionable, friendly interface, so good user experience, easy to access PDFs, videos, slides. We want to be able to see what are the popular dashboards in the organization, what's trending, some of these typical things you'd be used to in an interface like Netflix, for example. We want to have multiple deployment options. So what if you want on-premise, what if you want in the cloud, what if you want managed cloud, right? What are the different technologies? Of course, there's AWS, there's Google, there's all the Azure, there's all the different aspects we want to be looking at. And then finally, collaboration. So how are we supporting collaboration? How are we integrating with the various tools that are out there and the various platforms that support chat? Not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but some of the tools do have chat built into them, which can be quite useful. So we talked a little bit about the types of deployment options that you want to be looking at, but really on a high level, there's the SaaS option and then there's the owned cloud infrastructure. This is a real fundamental question you have to ask yourself. Now, pretty much all the BI hubs and portals support both options, but there are different implications to both. And it is one of those things you need to be able to deal with early on and understand what your needs are. Now, saying that, we're going to start to look at a few of the different types of portals that are in existence. But I want to tee it up first with talking a little bit about an example of with a case study. What does this look like in terms of an implementation that happened? What were the benefits, and what problems did they solve really, and what were the end results with it? So we're talking about a law firm, and it was a very, very large international law practice. And really they wanted to bring together all their reports, dashboards, legal matters, streaming video, supporting materials into one place. So the need was really to span all these different data sources, so 15 disconnected data sources, to be able to access all that content, but also to stream YouTube videos, as well as have native support for PDFs. So there's a bunch of interesting things here. So the solution provider was an AWS based web app, and integrating 1,500 users with Active Directory, single sign-on, and then having real-time chat and commenting for every single report. Now, this is one of the stock solutions that we support. We support multiple tools out there, and really figure out which is the best one to address the certain situation aligned with the goals of the organization. So you don't want to go building these things necessarily. It's better just to get the ones that are already there available. So some of the benefits of implementing one of those was having a centralized platform where you could access the single source of truth for everything. You just find everything there. Over 200 solutions became available on the portal with an estimated value of 30 million to the entire user base. Now imagine that amount of work that people didn't have to redo. They were basically just finding content that was out there that was already aligned with the organizational goals and values, but now they could discover it, whereas in the past they couldn't. And it really freed up practitioners' time. Some of this stuff is quite hard to quantify. So now making $30 million of assets available to the rest of the user base, well, that's great. But what does that really mean? So let's say an average dashboard costs $500,000 to produce within your organization. Now, what if somebody else has to make that in a different department or a different region because they don't know the one you built exists? Well, there's 500,000 just repeated. Now, maybe the needs are slightly different, but you could take the existing dashboard and tweak it to your needs. So this can unlock huge amounts of value to your organization, and it really depends on how you're going to quantify that value and that time saving, and it's different obviously case to case, but there's huge benefit and huge upside to doing this. Now, I did say there are a couple of types. Really, there's a few avenues you want to look at for your BI portals. On a high level, there's three. There's three areas that you want to be looking at. So first off, we've got our hybrid self-service. This is where you've got lots and lots of reports and dashboards, many technologies, you got poor user adoption, and you really need some quick wins. The advantages of the hybrid self-service approach is you get personalization, rapid implementation, and it's a low cost. But what is hybrid self-service? What does that actually mean? So you're potentially familiar with the term self-service. Self-service is where you give the end user access to data. It's structured, it's kind of safe, it's a managed environment where they can work with the data and pull it in as needed. There may be a data catalog, and hopefully there's some degree of data governance going on. What if we take it a little level higher than that? Not as deep in the weeds. Hybrid self-service, replace data with a dashboard or report. So basically you're giving the user access to the charts and KPIs and metrics within the reports and dashboards, not the data, the charts and the KPIs, the visual elements. You're giving the user the ability to pull out and place those on an interface across technologies. Now that might sound a little unusual, so we're going to look at an example for that shortly. Governance. So governance is basically addressing the situation where lots of reports and dashboards, that's common, but you need to migrate and our consolidated technologies. So what if you have just a ton of reports on, let's say, BobJ, for example, and you got 1,000 reports, and you want to go, well, you know what, who's really using it? And so you implement your hub, and you can see, okay, we've integrated with all our different reporting technologies. Wow, we have got 10,000 licenses for BobJ, but it looks like we've only got 20 people actively using our BobJ material, our BobJ licenses. And you go looking, there's ClickSense and there's Tableau, and they've got pretty good adoption. But we have like 20 extra licenses there. So what if we migrated those existing users that are the active users and reproduce those dashboards that are in BobJ and reproduce them in ClickSense or Tableau, whatever it is, Power BI. So it can help you have a structure of understanding how you're going to migrate. Now, obviously, this has huge cost savings. You can consolidate technologies. Not that that's a real goal that you need to be looking at. It's less and less so. I mean, in the past, there was really a strong push to be able to start consolidating onto one or two technologies. Less so the case now. It's more driven by scenario and use case. But also then you want, if it's in support of a BI strategy. So think of these two, hybrid self-service and governance. You know, the different hubs out there, they support these to greater or lesser degrees or not at all. It really depends on what your use case is. And then finally, collaboration. So you've got poor adoption of dashboards. Things are visually unappealing in your reports. Users are not getting the value that they want, and then there's no real time for requirements gathering. So collaboration is really that chat feature and the rating feature. It's being able to give feedback to improve your reports and dashboards. Now the advantage is you're going to start producing more valuable dashboards because you're getting feedback from people in a format that maybe people tend to be a little bit more introverted in this space are comfortable with, rather than face to face. And obviously you start to get more of a return on investment in your data. Some platforms do collaboration really well, some not so well. So it really depends on where you are. These are the things you need to be thinking about that are going to be important. So we talked a little bit about hybrid self-service. I want to show you an interface from one of the popular portals that are out there that we partner with. And it's a way of addressing hybrid self-service. I mentioned this in the last slide. This is where you can pull in lots of different content. And it's really interesting way to address the challenge of tons and tons of reports and dashboards. Maybe they're not the most valuable dashboards in the world, and you find that the end user kind of bounces around between a bunch of different dashboards and technologies, and they're going, I'm going to jump into Tableau over here and Power BI over here. I wish they all had what I wanted. So this interface, this portal, allows the user, our IT or whoever's designing for the user, it allows them to jump in and pull the different charts and KPIs that they care about independent of technology. So now look at this. Over here we have 2 Power BI charts. Well, that's pretty cool. Over here looks like we've got Tableau. Over here looks like we have Click. And then we got some KPIs coming from somewhere, and then we've got, you know, some web analytics here, and then we've actually got a Twitter feed. How cool is that? Now you're looking at this and you're going, wow, that's really customized for the user. The power of this is you don't have to go back and redesign all your dashboards to a best practice. Quite often we've gotten a situation where we've got hundreds, potentially thousands of reports and dashboards that people aren't using. And they're not using it because they're not really valuable to them. Because maybe they were never interviewed. Maybe there wasn't a persona approach to designing the reports and dashboards for them. So you're in that situation. Now, it would be lovely to spend tons of money and go back and redesign everything according to best practices. Most of us don't have the budget to do that. It's not really realistic. It's going to take a long time. So, hybrid self-service addresses that specific challenge. You can empower the user to do this themselves, or you can do this for the user, but you're not going redoing all the dashboards. You have those dashboards out there already, so now you're being able to pull them all together in various ways, in various configurations. So that is really, really interesting, very compelling. Hybrid self-service. Let's look at collaboration. Let's look at an example of an ideal situation where we can support the user in being able to give feedback and rate. So on this interface, you can see over here, we've got two views. Here's the view from a high level where you can go, okay, here's the dashboard. Here's all the different dashboards. I can see them. Think Netflix. And you can see their ratings. You can see the ratings for them below here. So you can start to get a high level assessment of, oh cool, that one's a good one. Whoa, that one's got really bad rating. No one's rated this one, so I'm probably not that interested in it. Or maybe it's very new. Once you click on one of these, you go a level down. And you can start to see in a little bit more detail. Okay, here's a video about it. So immediately I can access the training video. But also I can just launch the dashboard from here. Now, the chat, you can see, is persistent. You can access all your content here, but the chat is right there. This is the value of collaboration. So think of the two areas here that facilitate that. We got a rating system, and we got the direct chat here. And the chat is categorized as well, general technical suggestions. So these are some just very interesting features you may want to have if the collaboration element is something you want to emphasize. Now, of course, we care about the multi-device experience. We want to be able to support users how they do their day. So let's say get up in the morning, they have their phone with them, they're at home, but they want to be able to see their reports and dashboards. Okay, they can pick up their device and do that. Maybe they're on their way to work and they're in a taxi and maybe they use a tablet then. Well, okay, we can support that as well. Also, traditional desktop, laptop, of course, right? So this is where it comes back to the experience in a browser. You might need this, but it's becoming more and more of an important feature. So that's something you're going to want to look at as well, as not just having a responsive portal and responsive experience, but also one that's accessible. One that addresses the modern accessibility standards for color blindness, having high contrast, for supporting people that have various disabilities through the interface. So very important criteria. Now also we talked a little bit about personalization, and we looked at this a little bit earlier for the hybrid self-service, but this is it again. But you can see the flexibility here, right? Imagine just having a picture here, some sort of visual, maybe it's a video, but it's kind of just like your organization's homepage. It's very flexible. So you can have your standard content here, a bit about your company values and company vision. Here's a typical financial analysis report that you need to access, a bit of a feed from whatever news source. You got your time, and then you got some other reports in here. Look at the power of that. It was really, really customizable on all these tiles. So very, very interesting. That's all well and good. However, you could go and implement your analytics portal and things could still go wrong. So there are many reasons for why you would face a lack of success, but there's also many ways to prevent that failure. But reasons for failed portals. Largely you will find these are caused when you go do a custom solution. You build it yourself. You might have poor user experience. You might not have addressed change management properly. This is a really, really big part. You have to have an approach to change management. Vitally, vitally important. Now you could implement all of this and still have no mechanism for feedback. If your portal doesn't have a mechanism for chat, that's not the end of the world. It's manageable, but you have to manage it. You have to have some other way of gathering feedback on your dashboards. And finally, you may have a lack of intake and requirements process. That is one that is really, really, really important. You have to start understanding what the users want. Now, the portal can facilitate that, but it's not the only means of doing it. So if you think about, if you have a requirements process, think about the ability to be able to have multiple touch points with the user through your portal. So imagine you got your portal there and you're thinking, okay, we're going to produce a new sales dashboard. Great. Let's start inviting feedback and thoughts and comments on what people want from that new dashboard right there on the portal before the dashboard's built. It can be a mechanism for getting that input right beforehand. And also, we're starting to get engagement from people, so people know it's coming. We're starting the discussion around change. We're letting people know something's happening and that they're going to be part of the solution. So rather than just coming at the end of the day and just landing a dashboard in front of people, we're giving them the opportunity to have input into it. So it's not the only reason that you would, it's not the only aspect of requirements gathering, but it's a very, very important one, is getting that input from people before we actually do anything. And then we can design for a persona, we can put that persona up there in the portal, share it out with the intended end user group, and ask again for feedback. Is this what you want? Are we hearing you properly? Then you can put your wireframes up there. And then you can start, once your dashboard's built, you can put that out there and you can pilot it up there. So there's so many touch points that you can have to have effective change management. So consider these reasons for failed portals things you could address once you know what they are. But you're going to have to consider this in the context of what portal you pick, because they all have pros and cons. Regardless, you need an approach to change management. This is the number one reason we see for failure in portals. Not having significant effort and time and value placed on change management. If you avoid this, do it at your peril. Very, very important. So how can we help? How can Logic 2020 help you get started? So think of us as your advisor. We represent a number of the different platforms out there. We've done our research. We've done our due diligence. We know the pains that are out there. We know the challenges that can happen when you're implementing, particularly around change. And we give a technology agnostic perspective. So we don't lead with technology. We focus on what's value for you. It's really what we're interested in, is how do we achieve the change that you want? How do we help you and support you in your strategy and vision? Like the portals, we're technology agnostic. We help you pick the right portal, and then we can implement it for you. We can customize it and manage the service. So what does it usually look like? I want to give you a flavor of the overall process that we follow. So we're going to start with understanding the business and user requirements. As one would expect, it's also how we design dashboards. We design for personas. We focus on who's the end user, what makes them tick, what are they thinking about on a Monday morning when they're going on into work. We want to understand those things before we start anything. We then set up the infrastructure, install the solution, whichever one it is that's optimal for your situation. We determine the portal architecture, the layout, we configure, do any development that's needed, test and document, of course, and then start doing train the trainer. We need to enable the teams to be able to support the adoption of the tool and the platform, and start implementing effective change management and training. Talked about this, vitally important. You have to have it. That one's a deal breaker if you don't have some approach around it. And then finally, launch it. Treat it like a product. You treat your dashboards and reports like a product. We'll treat this also like a product. Have a proper product launch approach to it. So to give you a sense of what this looks like in terms of timing, usually it's a 6-week effort, depending on needs. If there's a lot of customization and you have some custom systems going on, it's obviously going to take longer. But let's just say typical implementation, week 1, kickoff, we want to understand the user, the business requirements. Week 2, 3, doing setup, configuration, a little bit extra time. We're going to be determining the architecture, the layout, the design, doing some testing documentation, of course, while we do that. And effective change management is happening pretty much the whole time while we go configure and develop. And then week 6, towards the end of it, we're looking to go live. That'll give you sort of a flavor of it. Now it can vary wildly. We would usually look at this timeline for doing a phase 1. A phase 1 is like, look, let's get quick value here. Let's get on the ground. Let's start putting this out. Let's do it to a subset of users. 6 weeks is reasonable. Now, when you're talking about more of an enterprise-wide deployment, you can go up to 3 months. It really, really depends. Really depends. But a good sense of how long this takes is 6 weeks. It's pretty safe. It's a pretty safe number. Depends on your needs. So that gives you an idea of the overall approach that we use. And also, hopefully, you get some sort of insight into how to select the best portal for your needs. So all that's left for me is to say thank you very, very much. We will have a follow-up webinar specifically demoing the various technologies that we partner with, the various platforms that we partner with. So stay tuned for that. And I want to thank you for taking the time. This is a very, very interesting topic. It's one we are very, very invested in. We're excited about. We want to talk to you about it. So if you have any questions right now, please put them to me. And if you want a longer discussion, just get in touch with us. Look at our website here. So go to logic2020.com/analyticshub and you can reach out to us from there. So I'll leave it there. Any questions, please, I'll get back to you right away.